Welcome, dear one. You've reached a precious moment in your day, the time to unwind, to let go, and to prepare for deep, restful sleep. As you lie in your bed, allow yourself to settle into comfort. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress, the softness of your pillow supporting you. Adjust yourself however you need until everything feels just right. Now, gently close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, feeling your chest rise as you fill your lungs. Hold it for a moment, then exhale softly through your mouth. Let's do this again. Breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, release any tension from your body. With every breath, feel yourself sinking a little deeper into relaxation. Picture yourself in a serene place as your day's worries fade away. You're standing at the edge of a quiet meadow at twilight. The sky above is painted in soft shades of lavender and gold, with the first stars beginning to twinkle. A gentle breeze brushes your skin, cool and soothing, carrying the faint scent of flowers and fresh earth. In this tranquil scene, you notice a path winding ahead. Each step you take along this path feels effortless, as if the ground itself is inviting you forward. The sounds of nature surround you, the rustling leaves, the soft chirp of crickets, and the distant murmur of a stream. Soon, you arrive at a small, cozy cottage tucked between the trees. A warm golden light spills from its windows, beckoning you inside. As you step through the door, you feel instantly at home. The space is simple but perfect, a crackling fire in the hearth, the scent of lavender and cedar in the air, and in the corner, a bed piled high with soft, inviting blankets. You move toward the bed and lie down. The mattress cradles you, the blankets wrapping you in warmth and safety. The sound of the fire crackling is like a gentle lullaby, coaxing you deeper into relaxation. As you rest in this peaceful place, let go of any lingering thoughts from the day. Imagine them drifting away like leaves carried by a gentle stream. Here, there is nothing to fix, nothing to do, just rest. Feel your breath becoming slower and steadier, your body heavier and more relaxed. With each moment, you drift closer to the soft, quiet embrace of sleep. Let yourself sink into this restful state, knowing that you are safe, loved, and completely at peace. Now, it's time to let go fully. Drift into dreams, into calm, and into the soothing stillness of the night. Good night, dear one. Sleep deeply and wake refreshed.
Chapter 1. The rhythmic clatter of the train lulled Megan and Samantha into a serene quiet as the snowy countryside began to give way to twinkling city lights. Samantha, her cheek resting against the window, gazed at the festive scene outside, a blur of frosted evergreens, white-dusted rooftops, and the faint glow of holiday decorations. Megan sat across from her, flipping through a small travel guide, a content smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "There it is," Megan said softly, pointing out the window. The towering spire of St. Nicholas Chapel came into view, its bell tower wreathed in golden light. "That's the chapel we read about. It's been there since the 1800s. Samantha turned from the window, her green scarf loosely draped around her neck. "You've really done your homework," she teased gently. "But I'm glad. This trip was long overdue." The train slowed as it approached New Haven Station, its grand facade illuminated in warm amber tones. The station, a testament to turn-of-the-century architecture, stood proud with its soaring archways, intricate stone carvings, and wrought iron details that seemed to sparkle in the snow. The hiss of brakes and the call of the conductor signaled their arrival. Megan slipped her guidebook into her bag and adjusted her coat. "Ready?" Samantha nodded, her face lighting up. More than ready. As they stepped off the train, the cold air nipped at their cheeks, and the scent of roasted chestnuts wafted through the crisp evening. The station's interior was alive with holiday cheer. A choir near the entrance sang a soft rendition of Silent Night, their harmonies drifting over the bustle of travelers. Strings of evergreen garlands lined the walls, dotted with crimson ribbons and tiny golden bells. Megan paused to admire a nearby mural depicting the town's history. "Look," she said, pointing to a scene of townsfolk ice skating on a frozen pond, their rosy cheeks painted with delicate detail. "This place already feels magical." "It does," Samantha agreed, her voice almost a whisper, as though speaking louder might break the enchantment. Outside the station, the city unfolded like a storybook come to life. Gas lamps lined cobblestone streets, their light soft and golden against the gently falling snow. Storefronts glowed with holiday displays, toy trains chugged through tiny villages, sparkling trees spun slowly in shop windows, and mannequins donned cozy scarves and mittens. Megan hailed a cab, its black exterior gleaming under the lamplights. The driver greeted them with a cheerful happy holidays as he loaded their luggage. "You ladies visiting for the Christmas festivities?" "Yes, and it's our first time here," Samantha said, settling into her seat. "Well, you're in for a treat," the driver replied as they pulled away from the station. "There's something special about this city in December. You picked the perfect weekend." The cab wound through the city streets, passing charming brick buildings adorned with wreaths and fairy lights. Samantha marveled at the life-size nutcracker statues guarding the entrance to a cafe, while Megan admired the shimmering icicles hanging from a fountain in the center of Candlelight Square. Their destination came into view, the Evergreen Arms Hotel, a grand Victorian building that exuded timeless elegance. Its red brick facade was softened by snow, and warm light spilled from its bay windows. A towering Christmas tree stood in the front courtyard, each branch dripping with ornaments that glistened like tiny stars. At its base, a miniature train circled a snowy village, puffing wisps of steam into the frosty air. "Wow," Samantha said as the cab came to a stop. "This is even better than the pictures." Inside, the hotel lobby was a haven of warmth and charm. A crackling fire blazed in the stone hearth, and the scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air. Plush armchairs were arranged around the fireplace, and a pianist played a soft medley of carols. Guests lingered with steaming mugs in hand, their laughter blending harmoniously with the music. The concierge, a poised woman with silver hair and a festive red blazer, greeted them warmly. "Welcome to the Evergreen Arms," she said, her voice calm and melodic. "You've arrived at the most wonderful time of the year." She handed them their room key, a brass charm shaped like a snowflake. "Your room is on the top floor, with a lovely view of Candlelight Square. Please don't hesitate to ask if you need anything. We want your stay to be as delightful as possible." "Thank you," Megan replied, smiling. Their suite was everything they had imagined and more. The room's large bay window overlooked the bustling square below, where families strolled hand in hand and couples posed for photos under an archway of twinkling lights. The window's frosted edges framed the scene like a painting. Megan set her suitcase down near the plush armchair and peeled off her gloves. "This is perfect," she said, crossing to the small desk where a welcome tray awaited. 2 steaming mugs of hot cocoa sat alongside a plate of sugar-dusted cookies. A handwritten card read, "Welcome to New Haven. Wishing you a weekend full of joy and discovery." Samantha flopped onto the armchair with a satisfied sigh. It's like they know us. Cookies and cocoa? They've already won me over. They spent the next hour unpacking, their soft chatter filling the room as they prepared for the evening. Megan hung their coats near the door while Samantha placed a small stack of books on the nightstand. Before bed, they decided to take a short stroll through Candlelight Square. The snow fell lightly now, dusting their coats and hats as they meandered through the plaza. Carolers stood near the fountain, their voices carrying a tender rendition of O Holy Night. Samantha paused to admire a small vendor cart selling roasted chestnuts, the vendor greeting her with a kind smile as he handed over a warm paper bag. Here, she said, offering one to Megan. The nuts' warmth spread through their gloves as they nibbled quietly, savoring the rich, earthy flavor. Do you hear that? Megan asked, tilting her head toward the faint sound of sleigh bells in the distance. It feels like we've stepped into a Christmas card, Samantha replied, her voice soft and full of wonder. Back at the hotel, they nestled into their beds, the sound of the city muffled by the thick curtains and the steady crackle of the fireplace. Samantha opened her journal, jotting down a few lines about their arrival, while Megan flipped through the hotel's guidebook, reading softly about the walking tour they'd planned for the morning. As the room grew quiet, the only sound was the soft hum of the city and the gentle sigh of falling snow outside. Megan turned off the lamp, and the two friends drifted off to sleep, eager for the adventures awaiting them in the days to come. Chapter 2. The morning arrived softly, with a faint light creeping through the frosted edges of the bay window. Megan stirred first, drawn by the muffled sounds of the city waking up below. The faint clip-clop of horse hooves from a passing carriage and the cheerful hum of a street musician's saxophone set the tone for the day. Samantha yawned, stretching in her bed, her hair a tousled mess that only added to her charm. Morning already, she murmured, rubbing her eyes. Good morning, Megan replied, handing her a steaming mug of coffee from the room's kettle. I thought we'd need this before heading out. Samantha perked up at the sight. You're a lifesaver, she said, taking the cup gratefully. So, what's the plan? The walking tour starts in an hour, Megan said, pointing to the pamphlet on the desk. I thought we could get breakfast downstairs first. They have croissants. Real, flaky ones. With that promise, the two friends prepared for the day, bundling up in scarves and coats before heading down to the hotel's cozy dining area. The soft murmur of guests greeted them, accompanied by the warm scent of fresh pastries and brewed coffee. After enjoying their breakfast, a spread of croissants, marmalade, and a shared pot of hot tea, they stepped into the brisk air outside, cheeks already tinged pink from the cold. The walking tour began at Candlelight Square, where a small group of visitors had gathered. Their guide, an older gentleman named Mr. Whitaker, stood near the fountain, his red scarf tucked neatly into his buttoned wool coat. He carried a wooden cane, more for flair than support, and had a voice like velvet, calming and rich. Welcome to our historic holiday walking tour, Mr. Whitaker said, his eyes crinkling with warmth. New Haven's streets hold secrets and stories, and today, I'll share some of the most festive ones with you. Stay close, and don't forget to look up, our architecture is just as magical as the season. The group moved as one, their footsteps crunching softly on the snow-dusted cobblestones. The first stop was Candlelight Lane, a narrow street lined with Georgian-style townhouses. Each house was adorned with a unique wreath, some featuring crimson bows, others pine cones and golden bells. During the mid-1800s, Mr. Whitaker began. This lane was home to many of the city's merchants. Every year, they held a competition for the most beautiful holiday display. The tradition continues to this day, though now it's for charity. Samantha nudged Megan, pointing to one house where a pair of children were placing small, candlelit lanterns along the railing. The soft glow created a magical effect, and Samantha whispered, "I think that one's my favorite." The guide chuckled as if overhearing. "That house has won 5 years in a row." Mrs. Winterbourne has quite the creative touch. Next, the group arrived at St. Nicholas Chapel, a Gothic-style church whose steeple Megan had spotted from the train. Its tall, arched windows were adorned with stained glass, their vibrant colors glowing faintly even in the muted daylight. Evergreen garlands draped the entryway, and a sign invited visitors to join the evening carol service. "This chapel has stood here since 1873, Mr. Whitaker explained. Its bells were cast in Europe and carried here by ship. They rung every Christmas Eve to welcome the holiday." As they entered, the group fell silent, their footsteps echoing on the stone floor. Inside, the air was heavy with history and reverence. Candlelit chandeliers cast a warm glow, illuminating intricate carvings of angels along the pews. Megan and Samantha lingered at the altar, where a nativity scene had been set up, each figurine painted with exquisite detail. "It's beautiful," Samantha whispered. "It really is," Megan agreed. "I can see why this place is part of the tour." Before leaving, Mr. Whitaker pointed out a plaque near the entrance. "This chapel once sheltered travelers caught in a terrible blizzard in 1902, he said. "The townsfolk braved the storm to bring them blankets and food. It's said that spirit of generosity lives on here." The next stop was Evergreen Hall, a grand Georgian mansion that now served as a museum. Its sweeping front staircase was adorned with poinsettias, and the front doors, painted a deep green, were flanked by stone Mayan statues wearing wreaths. Inside, the hall's current exhibit showcased the city's Christmas traditions through the decades. The scent of cinnamon and cloves filled the air, and soft music from a vintage phonograph set the mood. Megan and Samantha wandered through the rooms, marveling at the period decor. In one display, a 1920s parlor was arranged with Art Deco ornaments and a silver tinsel tree. Another room featured a Victorian-era Christmas dinner, complete with a goose centerpiece and elaborate place settings. "Can you imagine celebrating like this?" Samantha asked, gesturing to a velvet dress on a mannequin. "I'd trip over that hem in seconds." Megan laughed. "I think I'd just hide near the food." In the final room, the guide gathered the group near a display of handwritten letters to Santa from children of the past century. One particularly sweet letter caught Samantha's eye. "Dear Santa, I don't need much this year. Just make sure my mama smiles again. I'll leave you extra cookies if you can manage it. Love, Lottie, 1943. "That's heartbreaking," Samantha said softly. Megan nodded, her expression tender. "But it's also hopeful. I mean, kids really believe in magic." The tour ended back in Candlelight Square, where the group thanked Mr. Whitaker with applause. He tipped his hat with a smile. "May your holidays be filled with wonder and light," he said. As the group dispersed, Megan and Samantha lingered, savoring the moment. The square was busier now, with families exploring shops and sipping steaming drinks from paper cups. A young couple posed beneath a sprig of mistletoe, their laughter bright and carefree. Samantha turned to Megan. I can see why you picked this city. It feels like Christmas lives here. Megan smiled. And we still have so much more to see. They wandered off, hand in hand with the quiet joy of shared adventure, ready for whatever magic the rest of the day would bring. Chapter 3. The chill of the morning had mellowed into a soft, wintry glow as Megan and Samantha strolled toward the city's famous Yuletide artisan market. The air was crisp, carrying the mingled scents of spiced cider, pine boughs, and roasted nuts. The bells from St. Nicholas Chapel chimed faintly in the distance, signaling the noon hour as they turned onto Market Street. The market unfolded before them like a dream. Strings of twinkling fairy lights crisscrossed above the cobblestone square, while festive banners in deep reds and greens fluttered in the light breeze. Rows of wooden stalls were set up in a charming horseshoe shape, each booth adorned with holly garlands, golden ornaments, and glowing lanterns. "This is incredible," Samantha breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. "It's like a Christmas movie set." Megan nodded, smiling as she adjusted the scarf around her neck. "Let's explore every stall. Who knows what treasures we'll find?" The first booth they stopped at was run by an elderly man with kind eyes and a neatly trimmed beard. His display was filled with hand-carved wooden ornaments, each painted with delicate designs, snowflakes, stars, tiny nativity scenes. Samantha picked up a small ornament shaped like a sleigh, its runners gilded with gold leaf. "This is beautiful," she said, turning it over in her hands. The man smiled warmly. "That sleigh is modeled after the one my father built for me when I was a boy. He used to pull me through the snow to church on Christmas mornings." Samantha exchanged a glance with Megan before placing the ornament back down with care. "Thank you for sharing that," she said sincerely. "It makes it even more special." As they wandered further into the market, they came across a booth selling intricate candles shaped like everything from evergreen trees to angels. The scent of cinnamon and vanilla wafted from the table, and the vendor, a cheerful woman in a red beret, offered them samples of a spiced orange candle. "This one's my favorite," she said, lighting the wick with a tiny match. "It's based on my grandmother's holiday potpourri recipe. We'd always have it burning when family came to visit." Megan inhaled deeply, the warm, citrusy aroma immediately evoking images of cozy firesides and laughter-filled gatherings. "We'll take 2, she said, pulling out her wallet. Samantha grinned. "You're going to make our whole apartment smell like this, aren't you?" "Absolutely," Megan replied without hesitation. The next section of the market was dedicated to food vendors, their stalls emanating tantalizing scents. They stopped at a cart selling roasted chestnuts, the warm paper bag filling their hands with comforting heat. A few stalls over, they sampled slices of buttery stollen, its powdered sugar dusting their fingertips. One vendor caught Samantha's eye with an array of jars filled with brightly colored jams and jellies. "What's this one?" she asked, pointing to a deep ruby-red jar labeled Winterberry Preserve. The woman behind the booth, her apron smudged with flour and jam, beamed. "That's made from a blend of cranberries and wild cherries. Perfect on toast or scones." Megan and Samantha bought a jar, imagining it spread over fresh bread during their quiet mornings back home. Near the heart of the market, they stumbled upon a small stage where a local quartet played festive carols on string instruments. The soft strains of the first Noel drifted through the square, drawing a small crowd of shoppers who tapped their feet or hummed along. Megan and Samantha paused to listen, their bags now filled with trinkets and treats. The music was soothing, wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Samantha leaned closer to Megan. "This is exactly what I needed. It feels like everything slowed down, even just for a moment." Megan nodded, her gaze fixed on the musicians. "Sometimes I forget how nice it is to just be in the moment." Their final stop was at a stall selling handcrafted jewelry. Delicate bracelets and necklaces hung on display, their silver and gold catching the soft light. One necklace in particular caught Samantha's attention, a tiny snowflake pendant on a fine chain. "Handmade?" she asked the young woman tending the booth. The vendor smiled. "Yes, every piece. My grandmother taught me when I was little." Snowflakes were her favorite design. No two are alike, just like people. Samantha glanced at Megan, her expression thoughtful. Without a word, she purchased the necklace and slipped it into her bag. As the afternoon stretched on, they decided to take a short break at a cafe on the edge of the market. The cozy interior was filled with the sound of soft jazz and the clink of mugs. They sat by the window, sipping peppermint hot cocoa topped with whipped cream and candy cane sprinkles. "I can't believe how much we've already done," Megan said, stirring her drink with a candy cane. "And there's still more to see." Samantha leaned back in her chair, her expression peaceful. "This trip was the best idea. I feel like we're collecting memories everywhere we go." Megan smiled at her friend, grateful for the shared experience. "And there's still the tree lighting tonight. It'll be the perfect way to end the day." Samantha raised her mug in a mock toast. "To Christmas magic and the best holiday market I've ever been to." They clinked their mugs together, their laughter blending with the warm hum of the cafe. The day wasn't over yet, but in that moment, they felt utterly content, as if time itself had slowed down to let them savor the magic around them. Chapter 4. The sound of softly crunching snow accompanied Megan and Samantha as they walked along the lantern-lit path leading to Willow Conservatory, an elegant glass greenhouse turned tea room. Nestled within the city's central park, the conservatory stood like a glimmering jewel amid the wintry landscape, its glass walls reflecting the pale afternoon sunlight. "This place looks like something out of a fairy tale," Samantha said, her breath forming delicate clouds in the cold air. Megan nodded, pausing to take in the sight. Frost traced intricate patterns along the greenhouse's windows, and inside, poinsettias in vibrant reds and whites filled the space with festive cheer. Strings of fairy lights hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow that danced across the icy panes. "Shall we?" Megan asked, gesturing toward the heavy oak door at the entrance. Samantha smiled. "Absolutely. I could use something warm after that market." Inside, the conservatory was a haven of warmth and quiet sophistication. Ornate wrought iron tables were draped with linen cloths embroidered with snowflake patterns, and the soft strains of a string quartet played in the background. Guests sipped from delicate china teacups as steam curled lazily above their drinks. A host greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome to Willow Conservatory's holiday tea service. We have a table prepared for you near the window." As they followed him, Megan couldn't help but admire the holiday decor. A towering Christmas tree stood at the center of the room, adorned with ribbons, glass ornaments, and miniature candles that flickered as though by magic. Surrounding the tree, poinsettias and holly were arranged in carefully curated clusters. Their table overlooked the conservatory's snow-dusted gardens. Samantha leaned closer to the window, watching as small birds flitted between the frozen branches. "This is perfect," she murmured. The tea service began with a selection of loose-leaf teas presented in a beautifully carved wooden box. Their server, a kind woman with a cheerful demeanor, explained the offerings. "We have a variety of seasonal blends today. Might I recommend the cinnamon spice or the cranberry hibiscus?" Megan chose the cinnamon spice, intrigued by its warm, fragrant aroma, while Samantha opted for the cranberry hibiscus, its deep red hue reminding her of holiday berries. The servers soon returned with their teas, accompanied by a tiered tray of delicate treats. The first layer held tiny finger sandwiches filled with cucumber, smoked salmon, and herb cream. The second was piled high with warm scones, accompanied by clotted cream and the winterberry preserve they had sampled at the market. The final tier showcased an array of petite desserts, snowflake-shaped sugar cookies, miniature Yule logs, and jewel-like tarts filled with lemon curd and raspberry. "This looks too pretty to eat," Samantha said, eyeing a cookie dusted with fine silver sugar. Megan grinned, already reaching for a scone. "I'll take my chances." They savored the food slowly, the warm flavors of the scones and spiced tea spreading comfort through their chilled bodies. Between bites, they exchanged thoughts about the morning's walking tour and the treasures they'd found at the market. As they lingered over their tea, an elderly couple at the next table struck up a friendly conversation. The couple introduced themselves as Edith and Harold, longtime residents of the city who came to the conservatory every December. "This is our favorite holiday tradition," Edith said, her voice warm and lilting. "We've been coming here for nearly 50 years. 50 years? Samantha repeated, her eyes wide. "That's incredible." Harold chuckled, adjusting his glasses. "We even had our first date here, back when the conservatory was still a greenhouse. It wasn't nearly as fancy then, but it always had a charm to it." The couple shared memories of past Christmases in the city, describing candlelit carol services, ice skating escapades, and snowy walks through the park. Their stories wove a rich tapestry of history and tradition that Megan and Samantha found captivating. "Do you have a favorite memory?" Megan asked. Edith smiled, her eyes sparkling. "Oh, there are so many. But I think my favorite is when Harold surprised me with a proposal here one snowy evening. He tied the ring to a poinsettia and acted like he was just admiring the plants." Samantha gasped. "That's so romantic." "It worked," Harold said, winking. "Here we are, all these years later." After Edith and Harold bid them farewell, Megan and Samantha lingered over their final cups of tea. Samantha cradled her warm mug in her hands, her gaze soft. "I hope we have memories like that one day." Megan smiled, her voice gentle. "We already do. Maybe not proposals, but it's about the small moments, right? Like this trip. It's something we'll always remember." Samantha nodded, a thoughtful expression settling over her features. "Yeah, you're right." As they prepared to leave, their server approached with 2 small gift boxes tied with silver ribbon. "A token of appreciation for joining us today," she said with a smile. Megan opened hers to reveal a tiny porcelain ornament shaped like a teacup, painted with holly leaves and gold accents. Samantha's was the same, and they exchanged delighted looks. "Something to remember this by," Megan said, tucking the ornament into her bag. Samantha nodded. "Let's make a pact, afternoon tea every December, no matter where we are." "Deal." They left the conservatory hand in hand, the warmth of the experience lingering as they stepped back into the crisp winter air. The gardens sparkled in the fading light of the afternoon, and the sound of the string quartet drifted after them as they made their way back toward the heart of the city. Chapter 5. The evening settled over the city like a soft velvet blanket, and with it came the gentle hush of snowfall. Megan and Samantha, cheeks flushed from the day's adventures, found themselves walking toward Candlelight Square, where the horse-drawn carriages lined up under the twinkling glow of fairy lights. The square had transformed in the dark, the gas lamps casting a golden haze over the cobblestones, and the soft murmur of holiday cheer filling the air. Samantha tightened her scarf against the crisp winter air, her breath puffing into clouds. "I can't believe there's still more magic left in this day," she said, glancing at the line of carriages, each one draped in garlands and tiny silver bells. Megan grinned, pointing toward a chestnut mare with a coat so glossy it shone even in the dim light. "That one's perfect," she said. The horse, adorned with a wreath around her neck, stood patiently as her driver adjusted the reins. The driver, a kindly older man bundled in a thick coat and wearing a jaunty red scarf, greeted them with a tip of his hat. "Evenin', ladies. Fancy a ride?" "We'd love one," Megan replied. The driver helped them into the carriage, offering a thick wool blanket to ward off the chill. Samantha tucked it snugly over their laps as the driver climbed into his seat and clicked his tongue. The mare began to move, her hooves striking a rhythmic cadence against the cobblestones. The carriage rolled through the quiet streets, where the holiday lights shimmered like stars fallen to earth. Samantha leaned back against the plush seat, her face tilted up toward the sky. "Look at that," she murmured, gesturing to the swirling snowflakes illuminated by the glow of the lanterns. "It's like we're inside a snow globe." Megan nodded, her voice soft. "I wish I could bottle this feeling, the stillness, the beauty. It's perfect." The driver turned slightly to address them. "You'll want to keep your eyes peeled for the old courthouse coming up. It's a sight to see this time of year." Sure enough, the carriage turned onto a broad avenue, and there it was, the New Haven Courthouse, a stately building with tall Corinthian columns wrapped in garlands and strings of warm lights. At the center of its expansive staircase stood a life-sized nativity scene, its figures illuminated as though by moonlight. "It's gorgeous," Samantha said, her voice barely above a whisper. The driver chuckled. "And if you listen closely, you might catch the choir practicing inside. They always rehearse late this time of year." As the carriage paused, the faint sound of voices carried through the stillness, clear, harmonious, and reverent. Megan and Samantha sat in silence, letting the music wash over them, their hearts full. The carriage continued, taking them through Winter Haven Park, where trees stood draped in icy garlands and glowing lanterns hung from their branches. The snow here was untouched, blanketing the ground in pristine white. "Look there," Megan said, pointing toward a small clearing where a group of children was sledding down a gentle slope. Their laughter rang out, carrying on the cool air. Samantha smiled, pulling the blanket tighter around her. "It's nice to see joy like that. Pure, simple joy." The mare's steady pace slowed as they approached a small wooden bridge that arched over a frozen stream. The driver stopped the carriage, stepping down to gesture toward the view. "Take a moment," he said. "This is one of my favorite spots." Megan and Samantha stepped out, their boots crunching softly on the packed snow. They leaned against the wooden railing, gazing out over the stream. The surface of the ice sparkled like a bed of diamonds, reflecting the pale light of the crescent moon above. "It feels like time has stopped," Samantha said, her voice quiet and thoughtful. Megan nodded. "It's moments like this that make me so glad we came here. I didn't realize how much I needed to slow down." They stood there for a few minutes, the silence comfortable and serene. The driver eventually called to them softly, and they returned to the carriage, cheeks glowing from the cold. As the ride wound back toward the square, they passed small shops whose windows glowed with inviting displays. A toy store had its front arranged with dancing dolls and clockwork trains, while a bakery showcased a gingerbread village, complete with candy cane fences and sugar-dusted rooftops. "Let's stop at one of these tomorrow," Samantha said. "I want to bring something back for my niece. She'd love one of those dolls." Megan smiled. "And I wouldn't mind another excuse to check out that bakery." When they arrived back at Candlelight Square, the driver helped them down with a gentlemanly flourish. "I hope you enjoyed your ride," he said, tipping his hat again. "It was perfect," Megan said. Samantha echoed the sentiment, pressing a small tip into his hand before they walked away. The square was quieter now, with fewer people lingering in the cold. Megan and Samantha strolled slowly, savoring the last moments of the night. A small group of carolers sang softly near the fountain, their harmonies blending with the faint chiming of the chapel bells in the distance. Megan turned to Samantha, her expression warm. "Today's been everything I hoped it would be." Samantha looped her arm through Megan's. "And we still have tomorrow. Who knows what other magic we'll find?" They made their way back toward their hotel, the sound of the mare's hooves fading into the night behind them. As they walked, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in quiet beauty and leaving them with a feeling of peace they would carry into the next day. Chapter 6. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the city sparkled under the deep blue of an early winter evening. Megan and Samantha, their cheeks rosy from the cold, arrived at Centennial Hall, the city's grand historic venue. Its towering facade was a marvel of 19th-century architecture, with intricately carved stone columns wrapped in evergreen garlands and gold ribbons. Warm light spilled from the tall arched windows, beckoning them inside. "This place is stunning," Samantha said, tilting her head to admire the twinkling lights strung between the lampposts outside. Megan nodded, adjusting her scarf. "It's like stepping back in time. I can't wait to see what it's like inside." They joined the small crowd of concertgoers flowing into the hall. The rich scent of pine and beeswax candles filled the air, mingling with the quiet murmur of anticipation. Inside, the grandeur of Centennial Hall unfolded before them. The vaulted ceiling soared above, adorned with frescoes of cherubs and stars. Crystal chandeliers shimmered, scattering light across the dark wood paneling and plush velvet seats of the auditorium. A massive Christmas tree, its branches heavy with ornaments and twinkling lights, stood at the center of the stage, framing the orchestra. "This is incredible," Samantha whispered as they made their way to their seats near the center of the hall. "I feel like we're in a holiday postcard." The seats were plush and comfortable, upholstered in a deep crimson that matched the holiday decor. Megan sat back, taking in the details, the gentle hum of the crowd, the glimmer of instruments being tuned, and the sense of excitement building in the air. A woman seated next to Samantha leaned over with a smile. "First time here?" Samantha nodded. "Yes." "Is it always like this?" The woman chuckled. Every year, the Christmas concert is the highlight of the season. You're in for a treat. The conductor took the stage to a wave of applause, bowing graciously before lifting his baton. The hall fell silent, and the first notes of "O Come, All Ye Faithful" swelled through the air. The orchestra played with precision and warmth, each note resonating through the hall like a heartbeat. Megan closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. "It's perfect," she murmured to Samantha, who nodded in quiet agreement. The first half of the program featured a mix of classical pieces and familiar carols. The orchestra transitioned seamlessly from the haunting beauty of Ave Maria to the bright, playful rhythms of Sleigh Ride, which drew delighted laughter and applause from the audience. During the intermission, Megan and Samantha stepped out into the grand foyer, where small refreshment tables offered spiced cider and shortbread cookies shaped like snowflakes. They each took a cup, the warmth spreading through their hands as they sipped. "Did you see the percussionist during Sleigh Ride?" Samantha asked with a grin. "He was really into it." Megan laughed. "I think he might have been having more fun than the audience." A soft chime signaled the end of the break, and they made their way back to their seats, eager for the second half of the performance. The second act began with a surprise. A local children's choir joined the orchestra for a medley of traditional carols. Their voices, pure and angelic, filled the hall as they sang "Hark! The Herald Angels Sing in Silent Night." The audience was captivated, many wiping away tears as the final notes of Silent Night faded into a reverent hush. Megan leaned toward Samantha. "This is the kind of thing that stays with you forever." Samantha nodded, her eyes glistening. "It's beautiful." The finale was a rousing rendition of the Hallelujah Chorus, performed with the full orchestra, choir, and even the audience joining in. The sound was overwhelming, a glorious wave of music that seemed to fill every corner of the hall. When the last note faded, the audience erupted into applause, rising to their feet in a spontaneous standing ovation. As the concert ended and the crowd began to file out, Megan and Samantha lingered for a moment, taking in the glow of the stage and the lingering hum of excitement in the air. A few of the musicians stayed behind, chatting with audience members near the edge of the stage. "Let's go say hi," Samantha suggested, her face lighting up. They approached a violinist, a young woman with a kind smile who was carefully placing her instrument in its case. "You were incredible," Megan said. "Thank you for such an amazing performance." The violinist beamed. "Thank you. It's always special to play in this hall, especially for the Christmas concert." "Are you visiting?" "Yes, just for the weekend," Samantha replied. This was the perfect way to spend our evening. The violinist gave them a knowing smile. "Well, you picked the right weekend. There's nothing like this city at Christmas." Outside, the night had grown colder, but the festive atmosphere lingered in the air. The streetlights cast a soft glow on the snow-dusted streets, and the sound of distant carolers floated on the breeze. "I don't know how today could get any better," Samantha said, her breath clouding in the air. Megan looped her arm through Samantha's as they began their walk back to the hotel. "It's not over yet. We've still got tomorrow, and the tree lighting." Samantha smiled, her steps light and unhurried. "True. But tonight was unforgettable." As they strolled through the quiet streets, the magic of the evening settled around them like a warm embrace, carrying them through the stillness of the night and into the promise of another day. Chapter 7. The anticipation in the air was almost tangible as Megan and Samantha made their way back to Candlelight Square for the grand Christmas tree lighting. The square, which had been charming during the day, was now a spectacle under the evening sky. Strings of lights arched over the streets like glowing ribbons, and the soft snowfall seemed perfectly timed to add to the festive magic. Crowds had gathered, their excitement palpable. Families huddled together, children perched on shoulders, and couples strolled arm in arm, their laughter mingling with the faint strains of a street musician playing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" on a saxophone. "This is even better than I imagined," Samantha said, her voice hushed with wonder as she took in the sight of the towering Christmas tree at the square's center. The tree stood nearly 30 feet tall, its branches adorned with shimmering ornaments, ribbons, and strings of lights that sparkled like stars. At the very top was a crystal star, its facets catching the light and casting tiny rainbows over the snow. Megan smiled, pulling her scarf tighter against the cold. "It feels like the whole city is here." The two friends found a spot near the fountain, where they could watch the ceremony while sipping steaming cups of mulled cider from a nearby vendor. The drink was sweet and spiced, warming their hands and hearts as they chatted about the day's adventures. A young boy standing nearby caught Samantha's attention. He was holding a small, handmade sign that read, "Merry Christmas to my dad in heaven." Samantha's heart tightened at the sight, and she gently nudged Megan, nodding toward the boy. Megan smiled softly, her eyes warm. It's amazing how much love and hope can fit into such a simple message. They stood in thoughtful silence for a moment, the hum of the crowd a comforting backdrop. The ceremony began with the mayor stepping onto a small stage near the base of the tree. Dressed in a festive green coat with a red scarf, she addressed the crowd with a voice full of warmth and cheer. "Welcome, everyone, to our annual tree lighting ceremony," the mayor announced, her voice amplified by the speakers. "Tonight, we celebrate the season of giving, community, and joy. This tree stands as a symbol of all that unites us: hope, love, and the magic of Christmas." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Megan and Samantha joined in, their hands clapping against the wool of their gloves. A choir stepped forward, their voices rising in harmony as they sang "O Christmas Tree." The rich, layered sound carried over the square, wrapping around the crowd like a warm blanket. Samantha found herself humming along, her smile widening as a few snowflakes landed softly on her lashes. As the choir finished, the mayor returned to the microphone. "Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Help me count down." The crowd roared with excitement, and everyone began counting together, their voices rising in unison. 10, 9, 8. Megan nudged Samantha playfully. "This is so much better than watching this on TV." 7, 6, 5. Samantha grinned, her cheeks glowing from the cold and the joy of the moment. "I'm so glad we're here." 4, 3, 2, 1. The square fell silent for a heartbeat, and then the tree burst to life in a dazzling display of light. Thousands of tiny bulbs lit up in waves of gold and white, illuminating every branch. The crystal star at the top shimmered brilliantly, casting soft sparkles over the cheering crowd. Gasps of delight rippled through the square, followed by a wave of applause. Megan and Samantha stood in awe, their faces lit by the glow of the tree. "It's beautiful," Megan said softly, her voice barely audible over the cheers. Samantha nodded, her hand resting lightly on Megan's arm. "It's perfect." As the ceremony continued, Megan and Samantha wandered closer to the tree, marveling at its sheer size and beauty. Around them, vendors handed out free roasted chestnuts, and children darted through the crowd, their laughter echoing in the cold night air. They stopped to admire a group of carolers dressed in Victorian costumes. The singers performed "Deck the Halls" with an infectious energy, their voices ringing clear and bright. "I think this might be my favorite part of the trip," Samantha said, her eyes shining. "There's just something about being surrounded by so much joy." Megan smiled. "It's the kind of thing you don't forget. Years from now, we'll still be talking about this." Before heading back to their hotel, they decided to stop by a small artisan stand at the edge of the square. The vendor was selling tiny, hand-carved wooden stars, each one etched with a unique design. Megan picked up one that had a small snowflake engraved in the center. "Perfect for the tree back home," she said, showing it to Samantha. Samantha picked up another, this one with a crescent moon carved into the wood. "And this one for you. A reminder of tonight." The vendor smiled warmly as they paid. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies. Merry Christmas." As they walked back through the square, the glow of the tree lighting their way, Samantha slipped her arm through Megan's. "I don't think I've ever felt this much holiday spirit in one place." Megan nodded, her voice soft and content. "It's like the magic of Christmas decided to stay here and never leave." They walked slowly, the sound of carols and the soft chime of bells following them into the night. The tree stood tall and resplendent behind them, a beacon of light and joy that would stay in their hearts long after the holiday season had passed. Chapter 8. The glow of Candlelight Square faded behind them as Megan and Samantha stepped back into the cozy warmth of the evergreen arms. The lobby was quiet now, its earlier bustle replaced by the soothing crackle of the grand stone fireplace. A few guests lingered in armchairs, their voices hushed as they sipped steaming mugs of tea or cocoa. "Let's sit for a bit," Megan suggested, gesturing to the plush chairs near the fire. "I'm not ready for this day to end." Samantha nodded, her smile soft as she followed. The warmth of the fire quickly chased away the chill from their evening walk, and the scent of pine from the massive wreath above the hearth filled the air. "I can't believe how perfect this weekend has been," Samantha said as she leaned back into her chair, her fingers toying with the wooden star ornament she had purchased. Every moment felt like it belonged in a storybook. Megan smiled, folding her hands around a mug of peppermint cocoa she had brought from the lobby's refreshment table. "It's been exactly what I needed. Peaceful, magical, and real. Something to hold on to." Their conversation ebbed into a quiet rhythm as they reflected on the day. Samantha pulled out her journal, flipping it open to jot down her thoughts. The flicker of the firelight danced across the page as she began to write. The Christmas tree in Candlelight Square wasn't just beautiful, it felt alive. The crowd, the lights, the music, it was like the whole city was breathing in unison. "I hope I never forget the sound of the choir or the warmth of the cider in my hands." Megan, meanwhile, thumbed through a guidebook they had picked up at the hotel. She smiled as she read aloud a description of the city's history. "Did you know the first tree lighting in Candlelight Square was over 100 years ago? It was just a small gathering back then, but it grew into what we saw tonight." "That makes it even more special," Samantha said, looking up from her journal. "It's amazing how traditions can grow like that, isn't it? From something small into something magical." Megan nodded, her gaze distant for a moment. Kind of like us. We started as kids on a playground, and now look at us, still finding magic together. After a while, they decided to head up to their room. The suite was as inviting as ever, the soft lamplight and thick blankets on the bed promising comfort. Samantha set her journal on the desk and walked to the bay window, her breath catching as she took in the view. The city was peaceful now, its streets cloaked in fresh snow. The lights from the square twinkled in the distance, and the faint outline of the towering Christmas tree was still visible, standing proud against the night sky. "Megan," she called softly, gesturing for her friend to join her. "Look at this." Megan moved to her side, and together they stood in silence, watching as the snow fell gently, turning the city into a glimmering wonderland. "It's like the city doesn't want the magic to end either," Megan said, her voice quiet. They eventually settled into their beds, pulling the blankets up against the cool night air. Samantha turned off the lamp on her nightstand, leaving only the faint glow of the city lights filtering through the curtains. "I don't know if I can fall asleep," Samantha admitted, her voice soft in the quiet. "It feels like I'll wake up and this will all have been a dream." Megan chuckled lightly. "Well, if it is, it's the best dream I've ever had." Samantha smiled at that. "Do you think we'll come back?" Megan's answer was immediate. "Absolutely. We'll make it a tradition. Every December, we'll find a place like this, a new city, a new adventure, but always together." "Deal," Samantha said, her voice warm. "And we'll always keep a little bit of the magic with us, wherever we go." Before they drifted off to sleep, Megan reached into her bag and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I was going to wait until tomorrow, but here." She handed it to Samantha with a sheepish smile. Samantha sat up, her curiosity piqued. She carefully unwrapped the paper to reveal a small, hand-painted ornament of the city skyline, complete with the glowing tree at its center. "I saw it at the market and thought it'd be perfect," Megan said. "A little piece of this trip to take home with us." Samantha's eyes glistened as she ran her fingers over the delicate details. "It's beautiful. Thank you." She reached into her own bag, pulling out a small package. "Well, it looks like we had the same idea." Megan unwrapped the gift to find the snowflake necklace Samantha had bought at the market. She held it up, the silver catching the dim light, and smiled. "It's perfect." They shared a quiet laugh, the warmth of their friendship filling the room as the world outside settled into stillness. As the night deepened, the two friends lay side by side, their hearts full and their minds at peace. The soft hum of the city and the occasional chime of distant bells lulled them toward sleep. Before the quiet overtook them entirely, Samantha spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Merry Christmas, Megan." Megan smiled in the dark, her eyes closed. "Merry Christmas, Samantha." And with that, the city's magic wrapped around them like a blanket, carrying them into a slumber filled with dreams of light, love, and the promise of all the adventures still to come. The end.